So it's a little bit difficult to explain the results of the biopsy, but now that I'm 6 months old in a couple of days, I should be able to manage to explain it as much as it's explicable. Anyhow, there wasn't really bad news, but there wasn't really super good news. What does that mean? Well, in my bone marrow, they can see some cells that aren't right. That doesn't mean that they're seeing what they call blasts or real leukemic cells. It also doesn't mean that there aren't any there. I mean, there's always, as you said, a minimum level under which they can't see anything anyway. At any rate, that makes sense to me, and I think also it's what Dr. Hamati was expecting, because clearly, as he said, something's not right. He also said, with this result of the biopsy, of course, it's not something we find satisfying, because now they need to take some kind of action. But I don't have to go back to the starting point, people. This doesn't mean any kind of stationary inpatient treatment. It doesn't mean any chemotherapy at this point. But to try to see what's going on further and to boost Terry's stem cells in my bone marrow so that they grow in better, get more productive, etc. So practically, that meant today I had another transfusion of platelets because they were down in the basement again. So the ones I got on Thursday only lasted for a couple of days. Don't have to panic about that because I'm back in the outpatient clinic on Thursday, again this week anyhow. So the other thing that will then happen, the main reason for being back in the outpatient clinic on Thursday, is when Terry donated the stem cells, as I said at the time, she was, they could milk the daylights out of her. They really got an enormous harvest of cells from her, including a lot of leukocytes, which have been deep frozen for me in case I might need them at some point. And this is exactly the point at which that might becomes I do need them. So on Thursday, when I go in a little bit later so that Dr. Hamadi's finished with his regular consultations, he'll go up with me to the transplant station just for this business because there everything's outfitted for it. And I'll get some pre-meds. He'll thaw out the first unit of leukocytes from Terry, which I think he said is there are 5 million leukocytes, and the next would be 10 million, and the next would be 50 million. We start with the smallest dose. Because, first of all, getting these leukocytes from her could provoke a graft versus host reaction, like what I've been having, that rash. Also, interestingly enough, today, that rash is gone. He found that there. I'll come back to that later. I'm getting off the subject and going too far away. So I'll get pre-medication for that so there's not any kind of immediate reaction. I'll get those cells, and I'll be there from like 10:30 until 3:30 in the afternoon, or something like that. Then I can come home again. And the two purposes of this. One, as I said, it can provoke a graft versus host reaction. And indeed, that's even what they want to some extent, because that graft versus host reaction in this case could and would combat any old remaining cells of my own, because mine were the bad ones. would combat them, kill them off. Take some more Terry's and so increase her ammunition to kill off any of the bad old cells from me. The other objective of getting those leukocytes is that it would also further, how can I say, consolidate her stem cells in my bone marrow. These leukocyte stem cells from her, actually they work both ways. If they're needed in the bone marrow, they go there. If they, and also with the leukocytes, so they do both. They protect me. The leukocytes are what we need to be able to walk around in the world and not get some infection. Yeah. What else was I talking about? This evidently small week of graft versus host skin rash I had. So, well, that's very good in his opinion. Today, he wouldn't have been able to see anything. And in fact, I hardly itch anymore. I mean, a couple of days ago, I looked like some kind of apple crisp topping. My skin was all bumpy and itchy. I mean, not brown like apple crisp, but so red. I don't know what you could call it or would compare it to, because I haven't seen measles or anything like that in ages, so I have no idea. Anyway, a rash that started on the back of my neck, went all down my back, then on my chest, then down my arms, then down my thighs, yeah, and subsided in exactly the same order. Is that he's rather sure that that was precisely such an attack from Terry's cells against something or other in me that's that they don't like, right? Also, that it's subsiding is good, because that means there's no indication that they don't like me per se on the whole, because that could be very dangerous. Anyhow, it doesn't need to do anything about that. The other thing I have to do today is take another one of those Neulasta shots. I had one a couple of weeks ago, because my white cells are today down in the below the bargain basement. If anybody was ever in Filene's bargain basement, yeah, well, my white cells undercut any prices they ever had. And the most important ones for fighting off infections, the neutrophils, are practically non-existent. This Neulasta shot that I give myself at 3 o'clock, it should have arrived in the pharmacy, and Deborah will pick it up for me. That increases the white cells, especially the neutrophils, to protect me for the next couple of days. Has a long active time. And then, like I said, on Thursday, I'll get some cells from Terry. And he said, at this moment, it doesn't mean, we can't say that I've had a relapse of the leukemia. It isn't yet a relapse. It could be a precursor of a relapse. But that's why now action's being taken. So people, what I can say is, I was worried, and I knew something wasn't right. Yeah. With all the positive thinking and everything else, you still know when something is just not right. And I would have wanted to know anyway, what are we going to do to get me back in order? Because it can't go on like this forever, that I just don't have enough blood cells. Yeah, this makes sense to me. It's not, I didn't get the horror news today that now I have to sit around and cry and think I go back to start all over again from scratch fighting this. No, it's not the best that we could hope for. Of course, it'd be better if there was, just everything would be fine and hunky-dory. Yeah, but I guess we Tysons, especially mixed with gardeners, we're not ever so easy or uncomplicated. Yeah. And I feel okay with what he said today, and I get a plan of action, I know what's going on. It could be that, and I have to go in there now for every week, at least, not back to the regular oncological practice around the corner, but everything will be done with him in the outpatient clinic at least once a week. I'll have to go in to see him. Doesn't bother me. Outpatient, as long as it's outpatient, I don't care. I can come home and sit here. Everything's super. And could be that I got another dose of Terry cells. Anyway, they'll watch what's going on. And most likely in another couple of weeks after these, well, ever how many of these leukocyte transfusions from Terry that I get, they would go ahead and do another bone marrow punction on me, another, well, call it bone marrow aspiration, I think, actually, in English, but nobody knows what that means. Punction, it's a puncture. They puncture in and, get the stuff out. So I like to call it bone marrow punction. And then they can do a new biopsy and see what's the result of what we've done in the meantime. Now, what's been going on? I mean, after all, this business that was evidently an attack in me going on from Terry's cells against something that caused that rash, I mean, that also wasn't yet fully, whatever battle she was trying to win, that hadn't yet been fully won. Now that rash has subsided, so maybe already she's managed to do something inside me. I mean, I love my sister. I know she's doing everything possible for me. And it's wonderful that I got her in the deep freeze here in the clinic, and it's going to be okay, people. Makes me worry some, but I've also gotten some advice. Remembered the oncologist, psychologist that we talked to while I was in the transplant unit. Going to get some advice also from her, just how to deal with this whole phase of things, because a phase of worrying and even depression is very, very common for people who've been through a transplant, and it usually comes whatever the medical situation is. It comes whatever the medical situation is around this time. So also taking action on that front. We're doing everything we can, and Detlef was right there by my side. Only wish for him that he didn't have to go through any more of this, that we could call it finished, but he's just as willing to go on fighting for my life as I am. And I will. Nobody's going to get me to leave. Okay, I hope you all can watch all of this and not flip out, because it's easier for me to talk it than to write it. Bye-bye, everybody. Thanks.